The air smelled of wildflowers and alien rain. A small boy limped through the green mist of a strange world, holding his bleeding arm. His name was Ethan, only 12 years old, a human child lost in an alien forest. His father's ship had crash-landed. During a storm, they survived, but his father was injured and unconscious. Ethan had gone out alone, looking for help, food, anything. He pushed through thick bushes, his breath fast and shallow. Then he stopped. A girl stood in front of him. Her skin light blue, her hair dark silver, and small horns curling from her forehead. She looked around his age, barefoot, carrying a basket of glowing fruit. Ethan took a step back, frightened. The girl didn't run. Instead, she tilted her head and asked softly, "You're not from here, are you?" Ethan shook his head slowly, his eyes wide. "I crashed. My father is hurt." "We need help," he said. The girl blinked, looked at his arm, then dropped her basket and reached out. "My name is Lyra," she said. "Come with me." She led him to a quiet village hidden in the trees. Strange creatures watched him, but no one attacked. They gave him bandages, food, and a warm place to sleep beside his father. Every day after that, Lyra visited him. She brought him books from her people's school, taught him her language, and laughed at his jokes. They sat under the whispering trees, looking at stars through the leaves. He told her about Earth, about human cities, flying cars, and oceans made of salt. She listened with wide eyes and quiet smiles, her fingers often playing with the edge of her robe. Weeks passed. Ethan's father slowly healed. But Ethan had already changed. He didn't want to leave, not without saying something important. One morning, under a glowing purple tree, Ethan sat beside Lyra and gave her a small necklace. It was made from parts of his broken ship and a red stone he found by the river. She gasped and held it close. "What is this for?" She whispered. "It's a promise," Ethan said, looking serious. "When I grow up, I'll come back, and when I do, I'll marry you." Lyra stared at him, shocked. Then tears welled in her eyes. "No one has ever said that to me," she said, her voice trembling. "You're just a boy." "I know," Ethan replied. "But I mean it." She didn't say anything. Instead, she hugged him, tight, her small fingers digging into his back. Then they sat together until the stars appeared again. That night, Ethan's father said it was time to leave. The humans had repaired a beacon, and a rescue ship was on the way before sunrise. Ethan stood outside Lyra's home one last time. She was waiting, holding the necklace tightly in her hand. They didn't speak. He touched her hand gently, gave her a nod, and walked away. As the human ship took off into the sky, Lyra stood alone, watching, crying silently, the wind pulling at her hair. The villagers thought it was just childish talk, just two kids playing pretend. But Lyra kept the necklace hidden beneath her robes for years. She grew older, wiser, stronger. She trained as a healer, helped rebuild parts of the village. The outside world changed, too. War came close once but passed them by. She waited, hoping, dreaming, sometimes crying. But as the years turned, she slowly stopped believing. Maybe it really was just a child's lie. One night, as stars burned silently above, Lyra sat near the edge of the village. She stared at the sky like she used to, but now with older eyes. Then suddenly, the stars moved. A ship sleek and silver broke through the clouds and landed just beyond the forest. The village alarm rang. Elders rushed out, weapons ready. Children hid behind doors. Lyra stood frozen, heart racing. Her hand reached instinctively for the necklace still around her neck. The ship's door hissed open. A tall human man stepped out, armor scratched, cloak dusty, a long scar across his cheek. He looked around, his eyes calm but searching. Then he called out, loud and clear, "Is there a girl here named Lyra?" Gasps echoed, whispers flew. Lyra stepped forward slowly, her body shaking. The man turned, looked straight at her, and for a moment, no one else existed. He dropped his bag and knelt down. "I kept my promise," he said, smiling softly. "I told you I'd come back." Lyra's breath caught in her throat. It couldn't be. He was older, tougher, so different. But the voice, the eyes were the same. It was him. The boy who left. The boy who promised. And now, the man who returned. Lyra stood in the middle of the village square. The same square where she once played with Ethan when they were children. But now it felt different. The trees were taller, the houses older, the people more afraid. And the boy who once promised to marry her, he was standing there again. Only this time, he wasn't a boy. Ethan looked stronger. He wore dark armor, scratched from battles. A thick scar ran across his cheek. He carried a strange weapon on his back and a heavy bag in one hand. But his eyes, those kind brown eyes, hadn't changed. The villagers whispered behind her, "Is that a human? Why is he here again? Didn't they leave long ago?" Lyra's heart beat fast. She tried to speak, but her voice got stuck in her throat. Ethan stepped forward slowly and smiled. "I told you I'd come back," he said again, gently. Lyra stared at him, her fingers clutching the necklace he gave her years ago. She wanted to believe it, but he looked like someone from a war, not from a dream. You said that so long ago," she whispered. "Do you remember me? Or are you here for something else?" Ethan's smile faded. He opened his bag and pulled out something small, a piece of cloth. Inside it was the old drawing Lyra gave him when they were children. It was faded and torn, but her name was still written on it. "I've carried this every day since I left," Ethan said. "I searched many systems, fought in wars, built a ship of my own, but I always remembered you. I didn't come here for business, I came for you." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but before she could speak, a loud voice cut through the moment. "That's enough." The voice growled. A tall alien male stepped out from the crowd. He wore a thick chest plate, and his horns were painted with tribal symbols. His name was Volton, Lyra's betrothed. He walked toward Ethan, his eyes burning with anger. "She belongs to me now, human," Volton said. "You are not welcome here. Leave before you get hurt." Lyra stepped between them. "Volton, please, this isn't the time," she said. "I didn't know he would come back." Volton looked at her sharply. "But he did, and now everyone sees you crying for him." "Not me." Ethan raised his hands peacefully. "I didn't come to cause problems," he said. "I just wanted to see if she still remembers what we promised. That's all." Volton grabbed Lyra's arm. "We're done here," he growled, pulling her away. But Ethan's voice came again, calm but firm. "Let her decide." The crowd gasped. Elders looked at each other. No one had ever challenged Volton before, especially not for Lyra. That night, Lyra sat in silence. She stared at the necklace Ethan gave her years ago. Her heart felt like it was breaking in two. Volton was strong, respected, chosen by the elders, but he never asked what she wanted. He just took, demanded, ordered. Ethan was a stranger now, changed by war, covered in scars. But when he looked at her, she still saw the boy who once held her hand under the stars, the one who promised, and actually came back the next day. Lyra walked alone to the edge of the village. Ethan was there, sitting under the same tree where they once played. He was cleaning his weapon, looking out at the hills. He stood when he saw her, surprised but happy. "I didn't know if you'd come," he said. "I had to." She replied, "You said you came back for me, but you didn't know what you were walking into." Ethan nodded. "I knew things would change. I just didn't expect to see you already promised to someone else." "I didn't choose him," Lyra said quietly. "The elders did, after you left. I waited, but everyone said it was a child's game, that humans forget promises, so they made me agree to the bond with Volton." Ethan looked down. "I never forgot, not once." Lyra sat beside him. "I don't know what to do, Ethan. You came back, but everything is twisted now." Before he could answer, a horn echoed through the village. Raiders were spotted in the hills again, the same group that had attacked the village many times over the past months. The villagers panicked, children ran inside, and warriors grabbed weapons. Volton gathered a team and looked at Lyra from across the square. "Stay inside and keep the outsider away," he shouted. But Ethan didn't move. He turned to Lyra and said, "I'm not leaving, not this time." He walked to the gate and pulled out a strange device. One no villager had seen before. It unfolded into a glowing shield, shaped like wings. He stood beside Volton without a word. The village watched in silence, unsure whether to cheer or fear him and Lyra. She just stood there, hands over her mouth, heart pounding, because she didn't know which was more dangerous, the raiders in the hills, or the feelings rushing back to life inside her chest. The wind howled through the village gates. Dust blew into the air, carrying the scent of danger. Raiders had returned, their black flags waving in the hills. Everyone in the village moved fast, doors slammed. Children were rushed inside. Warriors grabbed their spears and blasters. Ethan stood in the center of the path, facing the hills. He didn't blink, didn't step back. He held his energy shield tight, its surface glowing with blue light. Behind him, the villagers whispered, unsure if they should trust the human or fear him. Volton stepped up beside him, wearing heavy armor. He glanced at Ethan, his jaw tight. "I don't need your help," he said coldly. Ethan didn't even look at him. "I'm not doing this for you," he said calmly. "I'm doing this for Lyra." Volton growled but said nothing more. The raiders were coming fast, 6 of them, riding loud hoverbikes, weapons ready. They thought this would be easy. They had attacked the village before and faced little resistance. But this time, something had changed. This time, a human warrior stood at the gate as the raiders charged. Volton raised his blaster and shouted, "Defend the village!" The other warriors ran forward, but Ethan didn't wait. He moved first, fast as a shadow, his shield catching the first bullet mid-air. Then he leapt into the fight. His body moved like lightning, his weapon humming with energy. One raider flew straight at him. Ethan rolled under the bike, slashed the engine, and sent the machine crashing into the ground. Another raider fired from the trees. Ethan's shield absorbed the blast, and he threw a small disc that exploded with light. The raider screamed and fell, blinded. Volton was strong too. He fought with fire and rage, but Ethan fought with control, with precision, like someone who had faced death 100 times before. The villagers stood frozen, watching in awe. They had never seen a human fight like this, like a machine, like a beast. But every time Ethan struck, his eyes were not wild. They were calm, focused. And each time he moved, it was in front of Lyra's home, like he was guarding it with his life. Within minutes, the raiders were down, some dead, some crawling away in fear. Ethan stood at the center of the chaos, his shield fading, his chest rising and falling slowly. Not a scratch on him. Volton stood nearby, panting and bruised. He looked around at the damage, then at Ethan. The human hadn't just helped, he had led the defense. Without him, the village might have lost again. The villagers stepped out slowly. Children pointed, eyes wide. One small girl whispered, "Is he a warrior from the stars?" Lyra ran to the scene, her eyes searching for Ethan. She saw the broken hoverbikes, the wounded raiders, and finally him. He turned to her, gave a tired smile, and said, "Still think I'm just a boy who made a promise?" Lyra didn't answer. She just walked to him and held his arm, checking if he was hurt. "I was afraid," she whispered. "I thought you'd get killed trying to protect us." Ethan looked at her gently. "I've seen worse battles," he said, "but I've never had anything worth fighting for, until now." Volton watched them with cold eyes. He stepped closer and said loudly so everyone could hear, "He fights well, yes, but he still has no place here. He disappeared for years, and now he returns to steal what's mine." Lyra's face turned pale, but Ethan stepped between her and Volton. "I didn't steal anything," he said. "She was never yours to begin with. Did you even ask her what she wanted?" Volton's hands curled into fists. The elders chose me, he growled. "She is mine by the will of the tribe." Ethan looked around at the villagers, then back at Volton. Then let her choose again. Let her speak for herself. If she picks you, I'll leave. But if she picks me, then you step aside. Gasps echoed in the crowd. No one had ever challenged tradition like this. But no one had ever seen a human fight for their village either. Lyra stood frozen, her heart pulled in two directions. She had known Volton for years strong, respected, feared, but he never made. Her laugh never listened when she cried, and now, here was Ethan, the boy who kept a necklace for years, the man who stood in front of her home during a battle. That night, Lyra sat by the lake, staring at the moon's reflection. Ethan came and sat beside her, quiet at first. Then he spoke. I didn't come to take anything from you. I just wanted to know if I still matter. Lyra looked at him, her eyes wet. You never stopped mattering, she whispered. I just forgot how to believe in promises. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small charm, half of a comb. Broken star pendant they made as kids. I kept my half, he said. Do you still have yours? She opened her robe and showed the other half, still tied around her neck. It was worn, old, but it still fit perfectly with his piece there. Eyes met, and in that quiet moment, something old became new again. The village was quiet that night. The fires had burned low, and most houses were dark. But Lyra sat awake, her mind racing, her fingers holding the necklace close to her chest. She couldn't sleep, not after what had happened. Not after seeing Ethan fight like that, speak like that, look at her like she mattered. She still remembered his words. Let her decide, he had said, right in front of everyone. No one had ever said that before. No one had ever asked what she wanted. A soft knock came on her door. She stood quickly, her heart jumping. She opened it and saw Ethan standing there, the moonlight behind him. I'm sorry it's late, he said gently, but I need to tell you something I never said when we were children. Lyra nodded and led him inside. They sat by the small fire, just the two of them. Outside, the night birds sang softly, and the wind moved through the trees. Ethan reached into his pack and pulled out a folded cloth. He unwrapped it carefully, revealing something strange and old-looking. It was a drawing, a childish one, but Lyra recognized it right away. It was her drawing from when they were kids. You still have it? She whispered, surprised. Ethan smiled, a little sad. It got me through bad nights, he said. Sometimes I'd look at it when I didn't know if I'd live to see another day. And I'd remember this place, you, your laugh, your kindness. He looked at her now, more serious. Lyra, I've been across star systems, fought in wars, seen planets burn. But no matter where I went, you were always there in my heart. Lyra's throat tightened. I thought you forgot me, she whispered. Everyone said you would. They laughed at me when I said you'd return. I never forgot, Ethan said softly. I came back because I loved you first. Before the battles, before the medals, before the blood, you were the first one who made me feel like I mattered. And I made a promise to return, not just for the vow, but because you were the one I wanted to spend my life with. Lyra blinked fast, tears building in her eyes. But things aren't simple anymore, she said. The village, the elders, Volton. Ethan nodded slowly. I know. I saw the way he looked at you. I heard what he said. But you are not an object to be owned. You're not a prize for warriors to fight over. He reached forward and gently touched her hand. I don't want to win you, Lyra. I want you to choose. And if you choose him, I'll leave quietly. But if you choose me, I'll stay, not as a soldier, but as the boy who made a promise under the stars. Lyra didn't know what to say. No one had ever given her the power to decide. She felt scared, but also stronger. Being near Ethan reminded her of who she used to be before duty, before fear. Suddenly, the door flew open. Volton stormed in, his eyes full of rage. He looked at Ethan, then at Lyra. I knew it, he growled. You bring shame to your house, Lyra. Inviting him in at night like this, Volton. Stop, Lyra said, stepping between them. He only came to talk, but Volton wasn't listening. He pointed at Ethan. You want her? Then prove it. Face me in the old way. Fight me for the right to stand beside her. Ethan stood slowly. I won't fight for ownership, he said calmly. I already said she gets to choose. She already did long ago, Volton snapped. She belongs to me, by the will of the elders, by tradition. Lyra's voice shook as she spoke. I never said yes to you, Volton. I agreed because they pushed me. But I never loved you. Volton's hands clenched into fists. You're confused, he said. You think he loves you because of old promises, but where was he all these years? Ethan stepped forward. I was fighting to survive. I didn't have a home, or a tribe, or a place to rest, but I still came back. Volton spat on the ground. Then fight me, he barked. Tomorrow at dawn, in front of the whole village. No weapons but the old blades, no tricks, no tech, just strength and honor. Lyra looked at Ethan with fear in her eyes. You don't have to do this, she whispered. Ethan nodded. I know, but I will, he said, turning to Volton. I accept your challenge. Volton smirked and walked out without another word. Lyra sat down, shaking. Why did you say yes? She asked. Ethan looked at her, his eyes steady. Because if I lose, at least everyone will know I didn't break my promise. And if I win, it will be because I stood for you, not took you. He stepped outside into the night. The stars above him were the same as before, but now he wasn't a boy looking up. He was a man ready to fight for the one who waited. The sky turned red with the first light of dawn. The whole village gathered in the center, forming a wide circle around the old stone platform. This was the place of tradition, where honor duels were held. No machines, no guns, no shields, only blades, courage, and the will to fight. Ethan stood bare-armed under the rising sun, a long scar down his chest, a simple blade in his hand. His armor was gone, his gear left behind. Today, he was not a soldier. He was just a man standing for his word. Volton stood across from him, massive and proud. He wore ceremonial leather, and his blade was larger, heavier. The villagers whispered quietly. He's strong, too strong for a human. He'll crush him before the second strike. But the human fights with something different in his eyes. Lyra stood near the elders, her hands shaking. She didn't want to see blood. She didn't want either man to fall, but she also knew this had to happen. They wouldn't let her choose without it. The elder raised his hand. This is a duel of tradition, he said. No death blow unless it is begged, no outside help, and no claim may be made without victory. The crowd fell silent. The elder dropped his hand. Volton charged first, swinging his blade with powerful strikes. He was like a wall of muscle and rage. Ethan dodged quickly, light on his feet, blocking just in time. Volton's strikes hit hard, sparks flying from each block. But Ethan didn't back away. He waited, watched, measured, then he moved. He ducked low, slid to the side, and slashed across Volton's side. Not deep, but enough to make the warrior grunt. Volton growled and swung harder, but rage made him sloppy. Ethan stayed calm, breathing slow. He remembered all the battles he had survived on ice planets, desert moons, asteroid stations. He had fought creatures twice Volton's size, but none of them mattered like this fight. This was for Lyra. Another cut, then another. Volton grew tired. He charged one final time, screaming. Ethan spun behind him, kicked his leg, and swept him down. The big alien crashed into the stone ground. His blade slipping from his hand. Ethan stood over him, breathing hard. He pointed his blade, but didn't strike. He turned to the crowd and said loudly, I won, but I don't want a prize. This was never about taking her. This was about letting her choose. Gasps echoed around the circle. Even the elders looked stunned. Ethan dropped his blade to the ground and stepped back. Volton groaned, sitting up, his pride broken more than his body. Lyra rushed forward, falling to her knees beside. Ethan, are you hurt? She asked, eyes wide with worry. Just tired, he smiled. She took his hand and looked at the crowd. For the first time in my life, someone asked what I want. She said, her voice shaking, and I choose him, Not because he won, but because he never tried to own me. He came back for a promise, not power. The villagers stood in silence. Then, slowly, one by one, they began to nod. A child clapped, then another. Soon the whole village was cheering, not for tradition, but for something new. Volton sat quietly, not meeting anyone's eyes. He stood and walked away without a word. No one stopped him. Later that day, the village prepared a celebration. There was music, food, and laughter in the air. The fear from before was gone. For the first time in years, the people felt something bright hope. Ethan sat under the tree near the lake, the same tree where he once gave a necklace to a girl with silver hair. Now she stood beside him, placing her head on his shoulder. "You could have taken me by the rules," she said, "but you didn't. I don't want rules." Ethan said, "I just want you." She smiled and looked up at him. "Then you already have me." The stars began to appear above. Children ran through the grass with glowing flowers. Old warriors told stories of the duel, but they spoke with respect now. Not doubt. The elders, too, talked in whispers, realizing change had come. Not with fire or war, but with one human's quiet promise. As the night grew deeper, Ethan stood before the villagers. "I'm not here to take anyone away," he said, "but I'd like to stay, if this place still has room for an old promise." The elders stepped forward. "You fought for no reward, you bled for no prize, you returned for love. There is always room for a man like that." Cheers filled the air. Lyra reached for Ethan's hand, holding it tight. This time, there was no goodbye, no parting, only the sound of music, laughter, and two hearts finally side by side. The village was glowing with light and laughter. For the first time in many seasons, people danced without fear. Children chased fireflies. Drums echoed in the hills, and smiles were everywhere. In the center of it all, Ethan and Lyra stood hand in hand. Their eyes met, and the world around them faded. This was the moment they both had dreamed of. The elders came forward, carrying a small glowing bowl. It was part of the bonding ritual, the joining of hearts under the stars. One elder held it high and said, "Tonight, two souls become one, not by force, but by love and promise." Lyra looked at Ethan, her eyes full of tears. "I say yes," she whispered. "I choose you." Ethan smiled and nodded. "And I choose you," he replied. The crowd clapped and cheered. The bonding was complete. But before the celebration could continue, the sky above flashed red. A streak of fire tore through the night. The music stopped. The laughter died. Everyone turned to the sky. Another ship fast, angry, and not from this world, was entering orbit. Ethan's smile faded. His soldier instincts returned in an instant. "That's not a trade ship," he said, his voice low. "It's a slaver scout." The villagers gasped in fear. They had heard the stories. Slavers from the outer zones, hunting for weak planets, stealing people, burning homes. Ethan stepped forward and pulled out a small device from his belt. A blinking light appeared in his palm. "They found me," he said. "I used my ship to come here. They must have tracked the signal." Lyra grabbed his arm. "You brought them here?" she asked, shocked. "No," Ethan said quickly. "I didn't know they were still following me. But I'll fix it. I promise." The elders gathered around him, worried and unsure. "What do we do?" One of them asked. "We're not fighters. We don't have defenses. We only just found peace." Ethan looked at the villagers, then at Lyra. "I can fight them," he said. "I've fought slavers before, but I'll need your help. We must prepare now." Volton, who had been silent since the duel, stepped out of the shadows. "I may not like him," he said, "but I won't let our people be taken. Tell us what to do, human, and we will stand with you." Ethan nodded. "Then, let's begin." For the next few hours, the village turned into a war camp. Ethan placed shields around the homes. He handed out old weapons from his ship. He taught the villagers how to hide, where to strike, and how to escape if needed. Children were sent to the caves, guarded by the old and weak. Everyone else got ready to fight. Lyra didn't leave Ethan's side. She helped carry equipment, shared plans with the elders, and spoke to the scared mothers. "I trust him," she told them. "He came back for us, he'll protect us." But deep inside, she was afraid. Not just for her people, but for Ethan. She found him alone behind the village walls, setting a trap. "You should rest," she said. Ethan shook his head. "No time," he replied. "If I fail, they'll burn everything. They don't care who we are. Only what we're worth in chains." Lyra touched his hand. "You're not alone anymore," she whispered. "We fight together." Ethan looked into her eyes. They were strong, steady, and full of love. He kissed her forehead gently. "Then whatever happens," he said, "I'll protect you, even if it costs me everything." Suddenly, alarms from the lookout towers screamed. The ship had landed. It was here. Ethan ran to the front gates. The slaver ship was large, black, covered in metal spikes. Dozens of armed creatures marched from it. Tall, cruel beings with glowing red eyes. They carried whips, shock rifles, and chains. The leader stepped forward and shouted, "Give us the human, or we take the whole village." Ethan stood on top of the gate and called back. "I'm right here," he shouted. "Come and get me." Without waiting, the slavers attacked. They charged the village, firing weapons and roaring. But they didn't expect what was waiting. Hidden traps exploded under their feet. Blinding smoke covered the battlefield. Villagers, now armed and ready, fought back from behind cover. Ethan moved like fire, fast, fearless, deadly. He took down slaver after slaver, protecting every corner of the village. Volton fought beside him, covering his back. Lyra stayed with the healers, helping the wounded, bringing supplies, never stopping. The battle raged through the night. Screams, explosions, and fire filled the air. But the village didn't fall. They stood strong together. By dawn, the slavers had lost. Their leader lay in chains. Their ship was burning. And the villagers stood tall, bruised but free. Ethan walked through the smoke, blood on his hands, his body tired. But when he saw Lyra, standing at the gate, smiling with tears in her eyes, he knew it had all been worth it. She ran to him and threw her arms around him. "You did it," she whispered. "No," Ethan replied. "We did it." The smoke was still rising from the edge of the forest. The ground was covered in scorched marks and broken weapons, but the village was standing. The people were safe, and the slavers were gone. Ethan stood near the gates, his body tired, his clothes torn, and small cuts across his face and arms. He had fought through the night, never stopping, never backing down. But now that the danger was over, he could finally breathe again. Lyra walked toward him slowly. Her long hair was messy, her hands stained from carrying the wounded. But her eyes were bright. They held the same light Ethan had seen years ago, when they were children under the stars. "You're hurt," she said softly, touching his shoulder. "I'll heal," Ethan smiled. "You always said that," Lyra whispered with a little laugh. Even back then, Ethan looked around at the village. The people who once feared him were now cheering for him. Volton stood nearby, his arm in a sling, nodding with respect. The elders came forward, their faces serious but proud. The eldest of them raised a hand. "We have seen war and peace in the same night," he said. "We have seen fire and hope in the same breath." He looked at Ethan and Lyra. "And we have seen a promise kept. It is time to finish what began long ago." He stepped aside, revealing the sacred circle of bonding once more. The glowing bowl was placed in the center again, this time not as a tradition forced by rules, but as a choice made from love. Lyra looked at Ethan, her voice trembling. "Are you ready?" she asked. Ethan smiled and took her hand. "I've been ready since I was 12, he said. They stepped into the circle together. The villagers gathered, standing close despite their wounds. No one wanted to miss this moment. The elder lifted the bowl. "Do you, Ethan, son of Earth, promise to protect, respect, and walk beside Lyra for all your days?" "I do," Ethan said, his voice clear. "And do you, Lyra, daughter of this land, promise to stand with Ethan, to love him freely. And never let go? I do, Lyra whispered, her eyes full of tears. The elders smiled and lowered the bowl. Then let this bond be sealed, by choice, by promise, by love. The villagers cheered. Flowers were thrown into the air. Children danced again. But this time, it wasn't a festival of defense. It was a celebration of something new. Lyra and Ethan embraced, not caring who watched. They were finally one, not by force or rule, but by something stronger: faith, memory, and love that had survived time. And war, later that night. The fires burned warmly in the village center. Food was shared, songs were sung, and laughter returned. People who once saw Ethan as a stranger now called him family. The children climbed on his shoulders, asking for stories of the stars. And the elders smiled as Lyra sat beside him, her head resting against his chest. Volton approached them, holding 2 cups of firefruit drink. He handed one to Ethan without a word. Ethan accepted it. Surprised, Volton raised his cup and said, "You were right. She was never mine to own, and you fought like a warrior, but loved like something even stronger." Ethan nodded. "I'm glad you stood with me," he said. Volton looked away, a small grin on his lips. "Take care of her, human." "I will," Ethan promised, as the stars appeared in the sky. Lyra and Ethan walked away from the crowd for a moment. They returned to the tree by the lake, the same place where he had once given her a necklace made from ship parts and a red stone. "I didn't know if I'd ever see this place again," Ethan said quietly, "but every time I closed my eyes in space, I pictured this tree." Lyra smiled and leaned against him. "I used to sit here and whisper your name to the wind. I didn't think it would reach the stars, but maybe it did." They sat down, side by side, the water calm beside them. Ethan pulled something from his jacket, a small metal star, shaped like 2 halves that fit together. He gave Lyra 1 half and kept the other for himself. "Let's never break this again," he said. Lyra took her half and nodded. "We won't." Behind them, the village was healing. Wounds would take time to close, scars would stay, but they were stronger now because of him, because of her, because of the promise that never died. And somewhere in the stars, above the quiet trees and silver lake, a new story began, not of war, not of loss, but of love that waited and love that won.